Hello, podcast listeners. We know podcasts are a great way to catch up on a program that you may have missed on KSJE, and it's provided as a free service of this radio station. But you know, KSJE is now listener-supported, and so while you enjoy this podcast, we hope that you'll also take some time to join KSJE. Become a member today. It's quite easy to do. Just go to our website at ksje.com/support and pick the level of support that best matches your budget. Thanks again for listening. Here's your podcast. KSJE is supported by San Juan Regional Medical Center. The caregivers of San Juan Regional Medical Center are committed to bettering the quality of life, health, and care of individuals, families, and our communities. Life is their sacred trust. Better is their mission. Here is their home. San Juan Regional Medical Center, improving the health of the Four Corners since 1910. 10 minutes past 8 o'clock. It is Tuesday morning, the 21st day of January, 2025. Good morning, everybody. I'm Scott Michlin. Thanks for tuning in this morning to KSJE 90.9 FM over the air right here in San Juan County, New Mexico. In Durango, Colorado, we broadcast at 103.3 FM. And if you're anywhere else on the planet today, you can go listen to us from our website, of course, streaming all the time there, ksje.com. We are not streaming our video this morning because of some technical reasons, so my apologies to our audiences on Facebook and YouTube, but we'll try to get that fixed right away. And so stay tuned for that news coming up. But today, our focus is on Aztec Schools, so I want to welcome back to KSJE in Studio A this morning, Aztec Schools Superintendent, no longer Interim Superintendent. That's an important distinction. Lauren Laws is here this morning. Good morning, and thank you for coming back. Happy New Year.
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Good to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
And again, congratulations, because it's now officially official, right?
Yes, it sure is.
Happened in December.
It sure did, yes. So
Unanimous school board vote, as I recall?
Yes, it sure was.
So now you've got the job well, not permanently, but at least pretty much full-time, right? No more interim.
Full-time, no more interim.
Got it. Okay. Good to have you here. And you brought a guest with you this morning, too, and that is your athletic director. David Sweet is joining us in Studio A this morning as well. Mr. Sweet, good morning to you.
Good morning to you as well, Scott.
Good to have you here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you both. And so our focus today is a little strategic planning, it sounds like to me, huh?
Yes. So a biggie for us is, as we move forward and look at our goals as a district, is we really want to be aligned. And so I felt like one of the important things was we don't have a strategic plan in Aztec, and we haven't had one for several years now. So we really want to bring in voices, teachers, community will be a big part of it, and just talk about what is our focus for the next 3 to 5 years, where do we want to go. And so, we're very excited about the work. Like I said, I think the community will be a big part, so we'll post on our Facebook page, maybe Tri-City, and try and just get the word out of community forums that we're holding.
You want input from the community?
Yes, we sure do.
And have you looked at any of the old strategic plans for any kind of guidance or things of what was talked about previously, or is this a fresh start?
Both.
Okay.
I have looked at our previous one. It was, it actually went up until this year per 2 superintendents ago. So it was Superintendent Carpenter, under his leadership, that strategic plan existed.
Right.
And so it's definitely outdated. There's goals in there that I think we can look at refining. We'll actually work with Dr. Steinhaus through CES. It's Cooperative Education Services.
Okay.
And so Dr. Steinhaus was the superintendent in Los Alamos, and he was our Secretary of Ed for a while. So he'll come in and he'll help lead that work so that us as administrators can sit on that team and our voices can be heard as well, and he'll facilitate it. So It'll be a little bit different than how it was put together several years ago.
Okay.
So.
And when you talk strategic planning for a school district, you mentioned goals and things like that. I imagine that's one part of it, but what are some of the other parts when you talk about something as comprehensive as a strategic plan?
Yeah, I think the goals are vital, and really it will help drive our work. So sometimes we feel like we're playing whack-a-mole. Because when you don't have a vision or a clear vision, right, for what's to come, then you're just playing whack-a-mole and just putting money into things that maybe don't align with where we want to go. So I think it will help other things fall into place in regards to ensuring that we're spending our money efficiently and effectively, and we really want to get our community behind us. So we feel like we're in a place where there's different opinions, and we want to go out for a bond eventually, and I think that a strategic plan and having everyone aligned will help those things come into place.
Got you. And certainly you're getting a lot of direction from the school board. They are
Yes,
certainly the people that would sign off on this, right?
Yes, and they'll actually be a vital part. There'll be a part where we will do a couple of, potentially 2 special board meetings just so their voices can be heard, and so they'll be a big part of the plan as well.
Got you. And so when it comes to goals, again, the state seems to give school districts a lot of ideas and suggestions on where they'd like to see things going, but what can the local district do in regards to that as well?
Well, it could be a matter of a lot of things.
Yeah.
One of the things the state gives guidance on is each school should have a ELA, a math, a graduation goal, and then culture goal is optional. So those are some of the things that we can look into is, of course, academics and where we want to be. I think facilities is a biggie. We have old buildings, and we do the best to take care of what we can.
Right.
Oftentimes, a lot of our 2 mil is spent on roofs and things like that need improvements, which is hard to see.
Right.
I know Mr. Sweet and I have looked at buildings and just, the athletic facilities. So there's just so many needs.
Sure.
And I've been working really closely with Mr. Flores in regards to looking at our facilities, and because there's so many needs, like how have we strategically laid out the needs and what's most important and prioritizing those. So I think a strategic plan can help some of that.
Gotcha.
So that we have realistic goals and expectations for where we want to go.
Right. You mentioned the bond perhaps in the future, and so would having that maybe kind of help you with some kind of a campaign with the state to say, hey, maybe we could get some extra state funds to help us either renovate or replace some of our older facilities?
Yeah, it would help. I think that's a biggie too, as we look at the community. I can't remember the last time we went out for a bond, but we know that our 2 mil barely passed.
Right.
And so I think that's work on us now, is bringing in the community and hearing voices. And I've actually met with a couple of vocal community members already who have just talked about needs that, they've known from 30 years ago that they're just bringing to my attention. And so feeling like we are spending our 2 mil in a way that we say we're going to,
Right.
I think has been a biggie. So when you look at a bond, that will be huge.
And it seems like the Aztec schools are sensitive to some of the concerns of the community when it comes to bond issues and 2 mil and things like that.
Very much so, yeah. And I think there is a perception that previously the bond wasn't spent toward what it said it was going to be spent. And so that's actually something we're investigating, because I wasn't here when that happened, and so we're just looking into, when we did pass a bond, what did the funds go toward, because we want to be transparent with people and
Sure.
be honest about where we are.
Right. Speaking of that, there is an expenditure that I wanted to ask you about
Yes.
that we almost were able to mention in December, but we just
Yes.
weren't. And so now it's we can explain what's happened, right? It involves some athletic lighting, right? Athletic field
We
lighting?
sure can, yes.
Mr. Sweet, is that your area
Yes.
of expertise?
That is my
So
area, yes, sir.
what's going on? What's new?
We were able to get approved some softball lights for our softball program to really start kind of kicking off, so they can have some later day games and more availability for our community again, going back to that community involvement to get out and go see games. I know, talking to several parents, that was a big issue. They couldn't make the 3 o'clock game because it was just so early. They're not quite off work yet.
Sure.
So this will allow us to push games back a little bit. Also, that program has been successful in the past, and it's nice to be able to reward those girls for their hard work and everything that they do. So,
Nice. Is this the first time that field has had lights?
to my knowledge, yes, sir. Since that field has been built, it's been, you have to kind of make adjustments because it gets dark a little early around this time of
Sure.
year, and so for them to have lights is a really big deal for them and
Yeah,
that team.
I would think so. What's the going price on a set of lights for a softball field? Do you remember?
I want to say when we started negotiations with the company we went on, it was sitting around $225, somewhere around there,
200,000.
Yep.
Okay. It's not a small chunk of chunk of change, is what I'm trying to say.
It is
So
a
and
large
this is
chunk of
that
change.
$2 million money that we've talked about.
So a little bit more on that. We have an MOU with the city. So
With Aztec.
Tiger East, yes, is
A joint facility.
a joint facility
I
with the
see.
city. And so we worked closely with the city to just say this is a priority. We've had an MOU with them, I think, for 15 years, so this is, long overdue. And so the city is doing lights in the parking lot, which they are currently working on.
Okay.
And we're
And you
doing
did
the
the
lights
field.
on the field. Yes.
Got it. Nice.
Yes.
Win-win.
And we used 2 mil. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Sounds great. And Mr. Sweet, that brings you into the conversation a little bit. I wanted to ask you about maybe the strategic planning in your area as athletic director, a job you've had, you're telling me, for about 6 months now.
Yep, about 6 months I've been here, and a lot of what we're trying to do is kind of the same thing. Focus on where's our list of priority as now instead of educators, but as coaches. And you spend probably about, if not more, the same amount of time as an educator with those kids, just because of the amount of time they're putting in practice, off season, XYZ. So really sitting down and saying, okay, what do we need for these programs to be successful, to get buy-in from students? Where have you been with your program in the last X amount of years? If you're new to this program, right, how do you go about finding out the history of this program and how it was successful versus how it can be successful? And so a lot of that is going to be covered in our needs analysis for coaching. Which I have a couple of coaches working on right now, so I can kind of fine-tune that process and really kick it in full gear coming up around March, I think, is when we're trying to introduce it to the rest of our coaches.
Gotcha. And is this looking at every sport in Aztec, pretty much?
It is, yes, sir. It looks at every sport. So every head coach will do their sport individually, and then that'll also assist me in doing kind of a needs analysis for the total athletic program.
Gotcha. And I guess, are you thinking that this may show you maybe some extra needs that maybe some sports have that others don't? Some maybe sports that aren't being even offered in Aztec that maybe could be offered in Aztec? Is this part of that conversation?
That is part of it, yes, sir. And then the other part of it, too, is just kind of seeing specifically where coaches feel that they've been looked over in certain areas, or areas that maybe they didn't realize they were being taken care of and they were looking over. And then also just kind of look at their program as a whole and how it can be more successful.
Got you. And then certainly there are some major, very successful sports in Aztec. Football, wrestling come to mind, and others, I'm sure. But are you always, I guess, watching to make sure that those don't suck up all the dollars in the room or dollars in the bucket, even though they're very successful? And don't get me wrong, I don't want letters from Aztec about the football and wrestling teams. I know they're very successful and have provided and put out some very good athletes. But how do you make that, I guess, more even, I guess, for everybody?
It's a big question on equity. Is what's equitable for one team is not necessarily equitable for another, based on the number of kids you have out, and then obviously their success is not determined by that.
Sure.
It's determined by the program itself, but that is definitely a question that comes into play of, okay, why is this program not being successful and not putting out the same things as this other program? So that is part of the thing that we look at is, how successful has your program been in the last 3 years, and what do we think that's attributed to? One of our big things that we're kicking off this month, actually, we just had our training on with coaches, is actually an athletic curriculum, and it's actually being used by both Farmington and Bloomfield right now. It's called Character Matters, and it's just focused on promoting good character in our athletes and creating young men and women who can go out in the world outside of sports and be successful.
Nice. Teaching some of those characteristics, I guess, that come into play when you're talking athletics and
Absolutely.
Team sports, things like that.
Yes, sir.
So, very good. Is part of this, too, facilities?
Sadly, that's always a part of it.
Okay.
There is a section on that analysis of where can we improve our facilities, what do you need as coaches, and then there's also a section obviously that what do you want, which
Sure.
is not necessarily a need, but it's something that you desire for your program.
Right. And as Superintendent Laws was saying, again, there's some facilities in Aztec that maybe could be upgraded in the future, or
Absolutely.
maintenance needs and things like that. We just talked about the new lights at the softball field, so again, that's one that's already been undertaken. But some other things always good to maybe do a analysis of where your kids are playing, what the fields and the courts and things like that.
Absolutely.
So very good. So this is going to start in earnest this spring, your strategic planning?
Yes, so I actually have a phone call this week with Dr. Steinhaus, and so he and I will game plan a timeline of how we can start rolling this out. I would love to have the plan completed this spring so that going into next school year, it's very clear to staff what our goals are.
Got you. And another thing I wanted to get back to is a little bit about the alignment for maybe your teachers and your staff and things like that, and the curriculum part of this too. And so for parents maybe who are listening this morning to know about what this means for their student athletes, but also maybe for their students in class, what does the strategic plan mean for them? That the teachers are going to be more aligned to teaching kind of all together in more of a team setting? If not, they're not doing that already. I think they are.
They are. I think it's more a matter of looking at where we currently are, and then just ensuring, and our principals are vital in this, but ensuring that when they go into classrooms, teachers are focused on the right thing. I think always a big focus is the rigor of lessons and ensuring that we're truly teaching at the level in which we need to. And they always talk about not teaching below grade level. Even though you have students that have gaps, you can address those individually, but truly keeping the rigor where it needs to be. And I think that's always a focus in our classrooms and with our administrators as they go in.
Right. We've talked about athletics. We talked about in the classroom. The other thing I wanted to ask you a bit about then too would be maybe those students that are maybe more arts centered. Is this also part of a strategic plan? Is talking with the band folks and the choir folks and the drama folks and things like that?
Absolutely, and that also falls under Mr. Sweet here.
Oh, pardon me. Okay.
He has activities and athletics.
I
I have
gotcha.
a whole broad range of
Back to you then, Mr. Sweet. All right. Give me your 2 cents on that, please.
So that's going to also fall into that analysis that we end up doing as to not leave out activities, obviously. We do want to make sure that those kids are taken care of just like we take care of our athletes. We want to make sure that their needs are met as well. So it's going to be a total athletics and activities analysis that I push out, like I said, in early March for them to complete the latter part of the semester.
Mm-hmm.
And that way we can really start addressing, okay, here's major needs for all programs across the board, not just athletics, but also, again, the bands, the choirs, anything that falls under that activity list. We have FFA, we have band, choir,
Theater.
we have theater.
Right.
There's another one. They actually got to go and do a thespian I want to say conference, but that's not the right
Competition?
word. Competition.
Yeah.
Down in Albuquerque.
Nice.
A couple months ago, and it was really, really cool to see them go down there and place as high as they did. I want to say they finished 3rd place at that thespian conference down in Albuquerque. So.
Very good. And so this is something that you want to keep looking at, I guess, and just seeing what else is maybe needed for these folks and these groups and of students and things like that. So that's important. Didn't even think of FFA. I'm glad you mentioned that, but that's another really important part for a bunch of your students. So good to know. And so as this goes forward, then this is pretty quick work, and you're wanting input from the community. So the best place to watch for that is maybe your Facebook page or the website of the district.
Yes, Facebook. We'll probably try and post something in the Tri-City. And,
the newspaper?
Yes.
Okay.
And just get word out there. Facebook seems to be a place that a lot of people tend to go, so that'll be.
And I found people have a lot of opinions on Facebook. Have you?
I feel I see that sometimes. Okay. Yes, sir.
There you go. Very good. But you want those opinions, I guess, is the point, right? And so you want parents or others in Aztec and the district to feel like they can contribute to this project?
Yes, definitely. We want voices to be heard, and I feel like if we don't listen, then we can never move forward. So some of that might not always be easy to hear, but we're new in our positions, and all we can do is move forward. So hopefully this plan will help us to do that.
Right. And by having the strategic plan, is this kind of a 5-year view or a 10-year view, or doesn't have any limit maybe?
3 to 5 years
3 to 5.
is what they say, and
Okay.
it's 3 to 5 goals.
Mm-hmm.
So you start with 3, and once you're making headway on one, you kind of start to loop in your others.
Gotcha. And I think there's a lot of folks that do set goals in their personal lives and things like that. There are other folks that maybe not, but I feel that I hear it's very important for organizations to have these goals. Even if you miss the goal, it's still something to strive for.
Absolutely. I think just keeping it at the forefront and having accountability for everyone involved is critical in making sure that it's achievable.
Right.
So.
And I guess that transparency comes back into it as well, right? So that the community can say, this isn't a private document, this will be a public document.
Yes.
And so everybody can see that, they're working towards this goal, or now that they've achieved that, they're working now at this goal, and things like that.
Yes, yeah.
So that's an important thing too.
Very much so.
For both of you, it seems like to me. So
Absolutely.
that's good to know. And again, school board is on board with this effort, I would think.
They are. I presented it last month at our board meeting, just the idea of it, and there were not a lot of comments, so it was great. I had kind of all along told them that I felt this was a direction that we needed to go, and as I was interim, tried to be very clear about that, of if I'm selected as superintendent, I feel like this is something that we need in place. So they kind of knew what they were getting.
Right.
But they've been very supportive and wonderful as we work toward this.
Right. Very good. Well, and in all of your visits with me, you've talked a little bit about the environment at Aztec Schools and trying to make sure that each student is welcomed and knows how important they are to the success of their academic careers and the school district. I mean, that seems to be a big part of your messaging as well.
Yes, culture has been our primary focus this year, and really, I feel like you go on campuses and it just has a different feel, especially the high school. Kids are friendlier, and when you say hi, they say hi back.
To a grown-up? Are you kidding?
Right? They don't
Wow.
look at you like you have 3 heads.
Good for you.
Yeah, so it's nice, and I know, that's those teachers working day in and day night with those kids and greeting at the door. I know Mr. Sweet has his handshakes with kids as he's out greeting, and so just being visible and I think reminding teachers it's the little things sometimes that matter.
Right. But it takes a while maybe to get that culture ingrained in everybody,
Yes.
right? Which is what you've been talking about and doing since you started, it seems. I know we've had those conversations, so that's important as well. Mr. Sweet, have you seen some of that, I guess, with the students that you interact with?
So for me, it's an everyday thing of, especially if I'm not in a meeting or on a phone call, I go down between bells and sit outside, and obviously we have a separate building, so kids have to come up to the gym for a few different classes, which is where my office is, and I'll go outside, I'll hold the door open and kind of force them through one door so I can say good morning and hello to everybody, and I have kids that give me handshakes now. I have fist bumps, and it's been really cool to see kind of the change coming in as a new AD to where nobody knows me, and now everyone goes, oh, it's Mr. Sweet, and they get a handshake or a fist bump or just a good morning.
Right. Very good. Well, nice to hear that happening at Aztec Schools for sure. Before we run out of time this morning, Lauren Laws, I wanted to ask you a bit about the state legislative session that begins, I think, today in Santa Fe for 60 days. Is there any pieces of legislation that you are particularly watching? Will you be making a trip to Santa Fe?
I might. There's several items. I actually updated the board last week on several items to watch for. There's some licensure changes with administrators and even superintendents that they're looking at. So superintendents have never been required to have a special license before.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so they're looking at putting that into place. And basically, it would be anybody currently a superintendent, my understanding is, would be grandfathered in. And then you would have to go to a certain amount of trainings per year to make sure that you keep up with your licensure. So I like the idea.
That seems reasonable, like most things on surface, right? But when you dig into it, sometimes there's a little things that might get you. But okay,
Very true.
You're watching that?
I'm trying to think of what else. And I just updated them.
That's all right. I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah,
so
no, you're fine.
That's okay. But it's a 60-day session, so there'll be time to chat about it again, I think, next month when you come. So we'll do that as well. Very good. Anything else to update the public on this morning from Aztec Schools?
Got baseball interview. Did I say we have baseball interviews today already?
Did not.
I don't think so.
We have baseball interviews today. We had our previous coach, Eli Wyatt, took a job. I shouldn't say took a job. He got promoted at his church, and so when he got promoted, he got his whole list of new duties, and they did not have someone fulfill his old duties, so he has, in a sense,
double
two
duties.
jobs. Exactly, two.
Right. Okay.
More duties now. So we are
something up at
interviewing
Aztec
for baseball today, and hoping that we can get a good quality coach in for those kids, and that's a big one for us. That's on the list for me today.
Right, I would think so. Doesn't that season start soon?
It does, yes.
Okay, all right. I'm sure you know that. So okay. Well, good luck finding a quality person, and any other. I'm sure there's other openings at Aztec Schools. It seems like every school district has openings.
We do have a few. We have less openings than we've ever had, though.
Good.
So the school board commented last time, and so it's very, very nice. We just filled my position I'll be able to announce next month who that was, my associate superintendent position.
Right.
Because we need to let staff know first. But we're very excited about that. And then we just have, very limited openings.
Okay.
So.
It is.
Gotcha.
It is a very small pool.
Yeah.
Good. Well, congratulations. That's a nice place to be.
Yes, it
and
is.
so that's important. And here we are again in January. So the school year is about half over. What are you hoping for your students between now and May?
Oh gosh. As always, I hope that they enjoy coming to school, and I think I've told you, just leave class every day feeling engaged and excited and surprised at the time's gone by. And we want kids to love being at school, and we know that breaks are hard, so hopefully teachers can soak up this time with them, and yeah, they're excited to come back.
Good. Well, we hope so.
Yeah.
Very good. Wonderful. Well, thank you both for coming in this morning. Appreciate you being here. Congratulations
having
once
us.
again.
Thank you.
Lauren Law, Superintendent of Schools with the Aztec School District. David Sweet, the Athletic Director. Thank you both for coming in.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank
for having
you.
us.
You're very welcome. My guests here this morning with me on KSJE. Did you enjoy that podcast? We hope that you did. And if you did, share it with your friends. And if you really want to keep podcasts like this coming, please support KSJE. You can do it easily online at ksje.com.